The sterile fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Evelyn Chen slipped on her white coat, preparing for another long shift at Memory Vault. She checked her reflection in the polished metal surface, a petite Asian woman with short dark hair and an air of quiet determination etched into her features. As she made her way through the labyrinthine corridors to her workstation, Evelyn couldn't help but feel a sense of ennui creeping over her. The job had become so routine, the extraction process meticulously choreographed like an assembly line. Evelyn's workstation was already set up when she arrived, an array of sleek machines and monitors clustered around a comfortable-looking recliner designed specifically for client comfort during extraction sessions. She double-checked the day schedule, noting the first client had already arrived, a middle-aged man by the name of Mr. Lee, who wanted to enhance his memories of a recent vacation. As Evelyn escorted Mr. Lee into the extraction room, she couldn't shake off the nagging feeling that something was off about him. There was an aura of nervous tension surrounding him, and he seemed overly eager for her assistance. Perhaps it was just her imagination, or perhaps she had simply become too jaded from years in this industry. "Please lie back on the recliner," Evelyn instructed gently as she prepared the neural interface equipment. "We'll begin the extraction process shortly." Mr. Lee complied hesitantly, and as Evelyn connected him to the machines, she felt a spark of excitement, a rare occurrence during these mundane procedures. But then something unexpected caught her attention. The memory seemed raw, unprocessed. It defied the standard editing and manipulation protocols Memory Vault employed to control the content of extracted memories. Evelyn's curiosity piqued. She decided to investigate further while continuing the extraction process. Little did she know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything she thought she knew about her work, herself, and the dark underbelly of the memory extraction industry. Evelyn continued the extraction, her mind racing with questions as she monitored Mr. Lee's neural activity. Where did this unaltered memory come from? Was it an oversight, or perhaps a deliberate attempt to bypass Memory Vault's safeguards? Joy, his pain, his triumph. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Evelyn completed the extraction process. She disconnected Mr. Lee from the machines, monitoring his vital signs to ensure he was stable. The man stirred, blinking as he regained consciousness. How did you do that?" he murmured, his voice shaky but filled with wonder. "I'm sorry, sir," Evelyn replied, keeping her tone neutral despite her own turmoil. "Could you please leave your feedback in the comment box before exiting the facility?" Mr. Lee nodded, still dazed as he stumbled out of the room, leaving Evelyn to process what she had just witnessed. She made a note to compile a detailed report on this unusual memory extraction and submit it for review. The sooner, the better. As she disconnected herself from the workstation's equipment, her thoughts drifted back to that unaltered memory. Had she merely imagined its raw intensity, or was there more truth than fabrication behind the emotions she had witnessed? As her shift drew to a close, Evelyn knew she couldn't bring herself to walk away from this revelation. She had to learn more about these illicit memories and their possible origins. Without hesitation, Evelyn made the bold decision to reach out to him under the cover of night. Leaving her apartment, she hailed a hovercab and directed it toward an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Neo-Vancouver, a notorious hangout for underground traders like Kale. The cab's engine hummed as they approached their destination. Evelyn's heart pounded with anticipation mixed with trepidation. The ride seemed to take forever before finally pulling up to a dilapidated building with flickering neon signs that read "Bazaar and Beyond." The driver warned her of potential dangers, but she was determined. Stepping out into the dimly lit alley, Evelyn scanned the area for any sign of Kale's associates. Spotting a figure lurking near the entrance, she approached cautiously and identified herself as the tech who had handled Mr. Lee's extraction. To her surprise, the man nodded in recognition and led her inside. The air inside was thick with the scent of ozone and something else, something primal. They descended into a basement filled with strange contraptions and pulsing machinery. In the center stood Kale himself, his eyes gleaming with an unsettling intensity as he beckoned Evelyn closer. She noticed several other technicians huddled around him, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern. "Welcome, Tech," Kale said, his voice low and measured. "I've been expecting you." He explained how his network had picked up on her growing unease with Memory Vault's practices, the same instincts that led him to uncover the truth about the corporation years ago. The illicit memories being sold weren't mere commodities but fragments of people's lives, raw, unfiltered, and incredibly valuable. "These aren't just memories," Kale emphasized. "They're consciousness, stripped bare of corporate influence. It's a glimpse into humanity untamed by control." His words resonated deeply with Evelyn, igniting a spark within her that had long been suppressed. As she listened to the others share their own stories of disillusionment and rebellion, she realized she wasn't alone in this quest for truth. "We need you," Kale said, his gaze locked onto hers. "Your skills could be invaluable in our fight against Memory Vault." In that moment, Evelyn found herself at a crossroads. Should she continue down the path of loyalty to her employer, or take a stand against them? The choice seemed simple until she considered the potential consequences for those she cared about. "We are not looking to destroy everything Memory Vault has built," Cal reassured her. "We just want freedom from their manipulation to let people rediscover themselves without constraints." Evelyn's mind raced as she weighed her options. She knew that choosing sides would forever alter the course of her life and those around her. But for once, she felt empowered, not trapped by corporate control, expectations, or manipulated memories. As the night wore on and plans were laid out, Evelyn made up her mind. She would join KL's cause, a path fraught with danger but filled with purpose. Together, they could unravel the tangled web of Memory Vault and bring about a new era where consciousness was free to thrive. With a determined nod, Evelyn Chen embraced the revolution. Little did she know that the consequences of this choice would lead her down a dark and winding road, one where survival depended on secrecy and deception. Yet even in the shadows, she found solace among those who shared her conviction that humanity deserved better than living someone else's manufactured reality. The battle was far from over. It had only just begun. The abandoned warehouse hummed with clandestine energy, an unspoken agreement binding Evelyn to this secret world. She moved through the dimly lit space with practiced ease, her eyes adjusting to the shadows as she met Kale in a secluded corner. "You're sure about this?" Evelyn asked, though the determined glint in his eyes had already convinced her of his resolve. "Once we start down this path, there's no turning back." "We won't be alone," Kale assured her. "There are others, technicians like yourself, who've seen behind the veil and are ready to take a stand." He handed her a thin folder filled with encrypted data. "This is your introduction to the Resistance. Study it well. You'll need to know how we operate." Evelyn accepted the folder, her mind reeling at the magnitude of what they were undertaking. "We'll begin by spreading awareness," Kale explained, his voice low and urgent. "We need to expose the truth about altered memories and corporate control." He paused, gauging her reaction. "You understand what this means, Evelyn, risking your job, possibly even your freedom." Evelyn's heart raced at the prospect, but she pushed aside any doubts. "I'm in," she confirmed, her voice steady. "Good. We'll start small, a few discrete operations to demonstrate our capabilities." He handed her a small device. "This is a memory scrambler. It can disrupt extraction sessions, freeing minds from Memory Vault's grasp." Evelyn accepted the device with reverence, recognizing its potential impact. She had seen firsthand the horrors of altered memories. Knowing she could help liberate others brought an exhilarating thrill. As they finalized their plans and parted ways for the night, Evelyn felt a sense of purpose she hadn't known since leaving her childhood home behind. She was no longer just a technician. She was a rebel, committed to freeing minds from oppression. Over the next few weeks, Evelyn's double life intensified. During the day, she maintained the illusion of loyalty at Memory Vault, all while secretly working with Kale and his network to disrupt extraction sessions and spread awareness about altered memories. As tensions mounted within the corporation, Evelyn's actions went undetected, but her mind was increasingly divided between her duty and her newfound purpose. One fateful evening, as she prepared to infiltrate a Memory Vault facility, Evelyn received an urgent message from Cale. "Meet me at the usual location tonight. It's time for our next operation." Something about his tone set off alarm bells. It wasn't just excitement or urgency. There was an undercurrent of danger that made her hesitate. Should she proceed with caution, or heed the warning signs and retreat to safety? Evelyn stood in the darkness, weighing her options. The fate of countless minds hung in the balance, and yet a nagging voice within urged her to reconsider. Could she truly risk everything for this cause when even Cale's motives remained shrouded in mystery? The choice before her was simple and terrifyingly complex all at once. As the night wore on and Evelyn made up her mind, she could not have predicted the shocking revelations that awaited her, revelations that would forever alter the course of her existence. Little did she know that, by choosing to move forward, she had already embarked on a path from which there was no turning back, one where survival depended on secrecy, deception, and the courage to face the darkness head-on. The battle lines were drawn. The war for consciousness had begun in earnest, and Evelyn Chen stood ready, her heart pounding with anticipation as she prepared to join the fight that would determine humanity's destiny. The abandoned warehouse loomed before Evelyn, its crumbling facade a stark contrast to the sleek skyscrapers that dominated Neo Vancouver's skyline. She had arrived here on foot, leaving her personal hoverbike in a secure garage several blocks away. The fewer traces left behind, the better. The chill of night clung to her skin as she stepped inside, her breath misting slightly in the cold air. "You're early," Cale said from the shadows, his voice barely audible over the hum of machinery and distant city noise. "Good. We have a lot to cover tonight." The air was heavy with the scent of ozone and burned circuitry, a testament to Cale's illicit activities. "I thought we were just going to exchange information," Evelyn said, her voice steady despite the unease in her stomach. She kept a safe distance from him, wary of his unpredictable nature. "We are, but there are other matters that require our attention first." Cale stepped into view, his eyes glinting with an intensity that made her take a step back involuntarily. "Issues." The word was vague enough to raise more questions than answers. Evelyn's mind raced as she tried to gauge the severity of their situation. "What kind of issues?" she pressed, her voice firm despite the tremor in her hands. Cale didn't bother to sugarcoat his words. "Is leaking information about our operations to the corporate side. Memory Vault has been closing in on us." Evelyn's heart skipped a beat as panic rose up inside her. Could they be caught? Arrested, tortured for revealing the dark underbelly of memory extraction? "That's why you brought me here," she said, the realization hitting her like a brick wall. "To get rid of my connection to Memory Vault before it's compromised." Kyle nodded once, his expression unreadable. "It's safer this way for both of us." With those words, Evelyn knew that tonight would be unlike any other night on the black market. The stakes had risen exponentially, and she was now fully invested in a game where one wrong move could mean imprisonment or worse. As Kyle began to brief her on their next operation, Evelyn's mind whirled with thoughts of betrayal, deception, and survival. Little did she know that this encounter would mark the beginning of a journey that would lead her down a path from which there was no turning back, into a world where trust was as elusive as an unaltered memory in Neo Vancouver's bleak landscape. Evelyn stood in the dimly lit warehouse, her senses on high alert as Cale revealed their plan for the night's extraction. She listened intently, committing every detail to memory: the location, the client, and the most crucial piece of information, the target memory itself. "Tell me again," she insisted, wanting to be certain of nothing going wrong. "What makes this one so special?" "It contains a fragment of his earliest childhood recollections," Cale explained, his voice low and confident. "Unaltered, untouched by any Memory Vault tech." Evelyn's eyes widened at the significance. Such memories were like gold dust on the black market, capable of unlocking doors in a person's psyche they never knew existed. As she mentally prepared for the operation, Evelyn couldn't shake the unease creeping up her spine. The presence of an informant within their ranks had put them all at risk. She glanced around the warehouse, searching for anything out of place, any sign that someone was watching or waiting to betray them. "Let's move." Cale said abruptly, his gaze scanning the perimeter. "We don't have much time before Memory Vault's security sweeps the area." Evelyn followed him outside into the night air, the cool breeze a stark contrast to the heat of her racing thoughts. The streets were desolate and dark, save for the occasional neon sign or glow from a passing hovercar. They approached their target, a run-down apartment complex that seemed to sag under its own weight. Evelyn could sense Cale's tension as they made their way inside, each step echoing ominously in the stillness. "We need to move fast," he whispered, his hand on the door handle leading to the client's residence. "Once we're in, keep your head down and follow my lead." With a deep breath, Evelyn nodded and let Cale guide her through the doorway. Inside, she found herself in a dimly lit room filled with an array of memory extraction equipment, a stark contrast to Memory Vault's sterile environments. Their client, Mr. Zhang, sat patiently on the couch, dressed in a white lab coat that seemed out of place among the cluttered surroundings. As Cale approached him with Evelyn at his side, she couldn't help but notice the man's eyes, the way they darted between them like a trapped animal sensing danger. "Everything okay?" Mr. Zhang asked nervously as Cale began to prep the equipment. "Yes," Cale replied curtly. "Just proceed with caution." With that, Evelyn watched in fascination as Cale administered the memory extraction procedure. It was a more invasive process than she had experienced at Memory Vault, a mix of drugs and electromagnetic pulses designed to break down the client's psychological barriers. She noticed how Mr. Zhang's body tensed under the onslaught, his breathing growing shallow as he surrendered to the sensation. As the memories began to flow, Evelyn felt her heart race with anticipation. This was it, the moment they had been planning for, the extraction of a potentially priceless memory from an unsuspecting victim. But just as Cale signaled that their work was done and it was time to depart, Evelyn sensed something amiss, a strange energy in the air, like the atmosphere before a thunderstorm. She looked around frantically but saw nothing out of the ordinary. "What's wrong?" Cale whispered urgently into her ear, his voice laced with concern. "Did you feel that?" Before she could respond, the door burst open and two figures stepped inside. Memory Vault security agents, armed to the teeth and dressed in black tactical gear. "We've received a tip," one of them said coldly, eyes scanning the room with lethal intent. "This is Memory Vault property, and you're under arrest." Cale's hand shot up, holding a device that emitted a loud, piercing noise, a diversion meant to give them time to escape. But it seemed too late. The agents were already advancing, their weapons trained on Evelyn and her companion. In the blink of an eye, everything changed. The stakes had just escalated in ways neither Evelyn nor Cale could have anticipated. They now found themselves trapped in a deadly game of cat and mouse, with Memory Vault's ruthless forces closing in from all sides, a desperate struggle to survive that would test their skills, trust, and very souls. As the agents closed in, Evelyn knew she was about to embark on a journey into the heart of darkness, where the line between right and wrong blurred and memories became both currency and deadly weapons. And in this treacherous landscape, survival depended not only on outsmarting her foes, but also uncovering the truth behind Memory Vault's sinister operations, a secret that could change the course of their lives forever. With the agents mere feet away, Evelyn realized she had a choice to make, one that would determine not only her own fate, but also the future of an entire industry built upon manipulating people's memories. Would she stand by Cale and his mysterious movement, or would she turn him in and pledge allegiance to Memory Vault? In this moment, Evelyn found herself facing the ultimate dilemma, a decision that would forever alter the path of her life as well as the world around her. And with every passing second, the shadows grew darker, threatening to engulf them all. As Evelyn's mind raced with possibilities, she heard the agents' footsteps growing louder, closing in on their position. She glanced at Cale, seeking reassurance that they were ready to spring into action. His eyes met hers, a fleeting moment of connection before he turned back to the screen displaying the security feeds. "We're clear for now," he whispered over his shoulder as he expertly manipulated the digital information streaming across the monitor. "But we need to move fast." Evelyn nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. Together, they quickly gathered their gear and slipped out of Mr. Zhang's apartment, merging into the crowded night streets of Neo-Vancouver. The city was a labyrinth of neon-lit alleys and towering skyscrapers, providing ample cover for their escape. They navigated through back streets and side passages, sticking to shadows whenever possible. Cale took the lead, guiding them with an uncanny knowledge of the city's hidden routes. Evelyn followed closely behind, her senses on high alert for any signs of pursuit. As they moved, Cale briefed her on their next steps. They would rendezvous with other members of his organization at a safe house located several miles away. From there, they could regroup and assess the risks posed by Memory Vault's escalating efforts to capture them. Evelyn listened intently, her mind still grappling with the enormity of what she had discovered about Memory Vault's illicit activities. She couldn't shake the feeling that Cale was withholding information from her, that he knew more than he let on. But in their current predicament, trust seemed like a luxury they could ill afford. After an hour of tense evasion and evasive maneuvers, they finally reached the safe house, a nondescript warehouse situated in one of Neo-Vancouver's many abandoned industrial zones. Cale produced a keycard, unlocking the entrance with a soft click. Inside, Evelyn found herself in a dimly lit space filled with makeshift workstations, crates of electronic equipment, and an assortment of individuals engaged in hushed conversations or typing away on encrypted laptops. The air was thick with tension and the hum of activity. Cale led her deeper into the warehouse, introducing her to several members of his team, a diverse group of tech-savvy rebels united against Memory Vault's oppressive regime. There was Lena, a brilliant hacker with an uncanny talent for breaching even the most secure networks. Marcus, a former Memory Vault technician turned whistleblower who had become their inside source, and Sasha, a gifted engineer skilled in the art of creating sophisticated off-the-grid encryption devices. Each person greeted Evelyn warmly, offering words of encouragement as Cale filled them in on their recent exploits. The team gathered around him, listening intently to his report before breaking into animated discussions about strategy and next steps. Evelyn observed the group with a mix of fascination and trepidation, still struggling to reconcile her former life as a loyal Memory Vault citizen with this new reality as an outlaw fugitive. Growing curiosity, sensing a deep-seated camaraderie among its members, a bond forged from shared experiences and a commitment to their cause. Despite her lingering doubts about Cale's true intentions, she found herself drawn to these individuals, each of them united by a desire for freedom and transparency in an industry that had long been shrouded in secrecy. As they planned their next moves, Evelyn realized that she was now part of this clandestine organization, a key player in the fight against Memory Vault's ruthless exploitation. And as she looked around at her new allies, she knew that nothing would ever be the same again, her life forever intertwined with theirs in a battle to reclaim the power of human consciousness. With renewed resolve, Evelyn joined the team's discussions, contributing her own expertise and insights to their plans. Together, they forged ahead into the unknown, driven by a shared determination to expose Memory Vault's dark underbelly and bring about a revolution that would change the face of Neo-Vancouver forever. But as they prepared for their next operation, a daring heist intended to steal key information from Memory Vault's heavily fortified archives, Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that her actions were now leading them down a treacherous path, one fraught with danger and unforeseen consequences. Their clandestine mission was about to begin, setting in motion a chain of events that would escalate their conflict with Memory Vault to unprecedented heights of confrontation that threatened not only their lives but also the very essence of what it meant to be human. And as Evelyn stood ready, surrounded by her newfound comrades, she knew that there was no turning back, their fates now irrevocably entwined in a struggle for truth and freedom against an adversary hell-bent on maintaining its grip over the city's collective memory and soul. As Evelyn led her team through the abandoned industrial zone, she couldn't help but notice the irony in this situation. Once a bustling hub of innovation, Neo Vancouver's Forgotten Corners now served as a clandestine haven for those seeking to subvert the status quo. Their destination, a dilapidated warehouse that had seen better days, was already buzzing with activity. Cale and his associates were assembling an array of sophisticated hacking tools and surveillance equipment, each designed to penetrate even Memory Vault's most secure systems. Evelyn felt her heart race as she examined the gear, recognizing much of it from her own work at the corporation. "Everything looks good here," she said, addressing Cale, who was huddled with his team, discussing their plan of attack. He glanced up, his eyes narrowing slightly. "You've got a keen eye for tech. I used to work in this field," Evelyn admitted, trying not to reveal too much about her past. "But I had no idea about the true nature of Memory Vault's operations," Cale finished, his voice tinged with bitterness. "No, you couldn't have. They've perfected the art of deception, making their clients believe they're enhancing their lives when in reality they're being manipulated and controlled." Evelyn felt a surge of anger towards the corporation she once called home. She had witnessed firsthand how memory extraction could be used as a tool for oppression, but it wasn't until now that she fully understood the extent of Memory Vault's influence. "You said something about stealing data from their archives," Evelyn said, steering the conversation back to their mission. "What exactly are we looking for?" Cale's expression turned serious, his gaze intense. "We're after a particular set of memories, a collection of knowledge and experiences that could bring down Memory Vault's entire operation if exposed." "Memories of their illegal activities?" Evelyn asked, her mind racing with the implications. "No," Cale replied, shaking his head. "These are something far more valuable. They hold the key to unlocking humanity's true potential, the essence of what it means to be alive and free." Evelyn felt a shiver run down her spine as she realized what he was implying. The memories they sought weren't merely a tool for power or control. They represented the very core of human consciousness, the unique experiences, emotions, and perceptions that made each person who they were. "Are you suggesting," she said hesitantly, "that these memories are unaltered?" Cale's eyes locked onto hers. "Yes, Evelyn. These are memories that have been untouched by corporate manipulation, pure expressions of the human spirit." The weight of his words hit her like a tidal wave, threatening to sweep away everything she had once believed about her role in society. For the first time, Evelyn began to question whether her loyalty should lie with Memory Vault or with those fighting against its tyranny. "You're asking me to betray my employer," she said softly, feeling torn between duty and desire for truth. "I'm asking you to reclaim your own humanity," Cale countered, his voice filled with conviction. "Join us, Evelyn, and together we'll bring an end to Memory Vault's reign of control." Evelyn hesitated, her mind swirling with conflicting emotions as she stood on the precipice of a decision that would change everything. The memories they sought were the very things she had spent years perfecting their extraction. Now, she was being asked to use those skills for an entirely different purpose. And yet, despite the risks and uncertainties ahead, Evelyn felt a spark of determination ignite within her. She knew that she couldn't turn back now, that to stand idle in the face of oppression would be an act of cowardice against her own soul. In this moment, Evelyn Chen made up her mind she would follow Cale into the unknown, risking everything to reclaim the memories and identities stolen from countless individuals by Memory Vault. And though she couldn't yet foresee the consequences of their actions or fully comprehend the true nature of their mission, one thing was certain: nothing in Neo Vancouver's future would ever be the same again. The night air chilled Evelyn as she stepped out of the abandoned warehouse, Cale's instructions ringing in her ears. She glanced over her shoulder at the run-down building behind her, now their safe house. The darkness seemed to swallow everything whole, the perfect cover for their clandestine activities. Her heart raced with anticipation and a touch of fear as she hailed a cab, giving the driver a cryptic address. The city's neon lights blurred past her window, casting an otherworldly glow on Neo Vancouver's concrete jungle. 15 minutes later, they pulled up to an unassuming apartment complex in one of the city's less affluent districts. Cale paid the fare and guided Evelyn inside. They rode the elevator to top floor, where a nondescript door awaited them. Inside, the space felt cramped and cluttered with makeshift equipment servers, monitors, and various tools for data extraction. In the center of it all stood a figure shrouded in shadows. "Welcome, Evelyn," he said, stepping into the dim light. His features were obscured by an elaborate mask, but his voice was unmistakable, a blend of warmth and authority. "I'm Wren," he introduced himself, extending a hand to greet her. She accepted it tentatively, sensing a strength in his grip that belied his slender build. Cale briefed Evelyn on their plan, extracting the remaining illicit memories from the black market's hidden servers. This was the key to understanding the true scope of Memory Vault's corruption and proving the existence of unaltered consciousness. Wren had managed to infiltrate these networks over time, gathering crucial intel for their cause. Evelyn watched in awe as Wren demonstrated his skills, fingers flying across keyboards, commands executed with military precision. The servers hummed to life, their screens flashing with encrypted data streams. Evelyn knew the value of this information and how it could reshape public opinion against Memory Vault, but she also felt a twinge of envy at Wren's skill set. As they worked through the night, Evelyn discovered that she had stumbled into an underground collective of rebels, tech-savvy individuals who had grown disillusioned with the memory extraction industry. They shared stories of corporate manipulation and personal losses, forging bonds of solidarity in their fight against oppression. Evelyn found herself drawn to this new community, seeing glimpses of hope where once only despair had existed. But amidst these revelations, a nagging doubt persisted. It was about Cale and his true intentions for the illicit memories they sought to reclaim. Was he truly seeking freedom for all consciousness, as he claimed? Or did he have another agenda, perhaps one driven by personal vendetta or a thirst for power? Set of digital plans on a holopad, their safe house, nestled in Neo-Vancouver's abandoned industrial zone, buzzed with activity. Technicians worked feverishly to prep equipment for an imminent extraction mission, a high-risk op that could either secure their position or jeopardize everything they'd gained so far. "You're going in alone," Wren said, her voice firm but measured. "We need you to retrieve the memories from Memory Vault's archives, the ones containing evidence of illicit trade and corporate malfeasance." Evelyn nodded, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and trepidation. She'd been preparing for this moment since joining the Rebel Collective, honing her skills and familiarizing herself with the Vault's labyrinthine security systems. Still, doubts lingered at the back of her mind about Cale's true intentions and the potential risks involved in their clandestine operation. "I'll need access to your secure channels," she told Wren, who handed over a small encrypted device. "This should allow me to bypass any alarms and cameras." Wren began, but was interrupted by a commotion from outside their makeshift command center. "What's that?" someone asked, as the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the dimly lit room. The door burst open, revealing two figures clad in black tactical gear. Cale stepped forward, his face obscured behind a mask, and Evelyn felt her pulse quicken. This was the moment when she'd confront him about her suspicions. "You're needed at the extraction site," he announced brusquely, gesturing to Wren with an air of authority that bordered on arrogance. "We have a client willing to pay top dollar for enhanced memories." Evelyn's eyes narrowed behind her own mask. This was no coincidence. Cale had orchestrated this meetup to assert his control over the mission and its participants. She could feel the tension in the room escalate as Wren, sensing Evelyn's unease, moved closer to stand beside her. "Cale, Evelyn," he countered, his voice low and commanding. "We don't have time for this. The Vault won't wait." A sudden surge of defiance washed over Evelyn, fueled by the memories of her past and the knowledge she'd gained since joining the Rebels. She was no longer just a technician, beholden to Memory Vault's whims. She was a catalyst for change, ready to challenge the status quo at any cost. "I'm not going anywhere," she declared, her words laced with conviction. "I have questions about our operation, about you, and I intend to get answers." Cale's mask glinted in the dim light as he regarded Evelyn with an unreadable expression. For a moment it seemed as though he might respond, but instead he simply turned and exited the room, leaving his two associates behind. "Looks like we've got our answer," Ren said quietly, placing a hand on Evelyn's shoulder. "Let's get to the vault before Memory Vault realizes what's happening." Evelyn nodded, her mind racing with possibilities as they departed for their high-stakes mission. Little did she know that this night would mark a turning point in her journey, one that would force her to confront the very nature of reality and decide where her true loyalties lay. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: Evelyn Chen's choices would shape not only her own destiny, but also the fate of countless minds trapped within the memory extraction industry. The shadows danced across their faces as they approached the heavily fortified Memory Vault archives, a labyrinthine complex that housed the secrets of countless lives. Ren led the way, his fingers deftly working the keypad to bypass security protocols. Evelyn felt her heart race with anticipation and fear. This was the moment she'd been preparing for. As they slipped inside, Evelyn marveled at the rows upon rows of gleaming servers, each one containing the digital essence of a human being. It was both awe-inspiring and terrifying, a testament to humanity's obsession with control and knowledge. "This is where we find the answers," Ren whispered, guiding her down a narrow corridor lined with server racks. "The true origins of those illicit memories." Evelyn nodded, her gaze fixed on the screens that flickered to life before them. Rows of data streams pulsed with an ethereal light, each representing a unique mind print, the genetic blueprint of a person's consciousness. Kale appeared beside them, his expression grim as he analyzed the information flowing across the screens. "We're getting close," he murmured. "There's evidence here that Memory Vault has been experimenting with something far more sinister than mere memory extraction." Evelyn felt her stomach churn at the implications. If what Kyle suspected was true, that Memory Vault had developed a means of altering identities, manipulating consciousness itself, it would mean they wielded unthinkable power over the minds and souls of Neo Vancouver's citizens. "We need to find proof," Ren said urgently. "Something concrete we can use to expose them." As if on cue, a server beeped, signaling an anomalous access request. Evelyn's eyes widened as she realized that someone or something was attempting to breach the archives from within. "Memory Vault's onto us," Kale warned, already sprinting down the corridor toward the source of the intrusion. "We have to act fast." Evelyn and Ren followed close behind, their footsteps echoing off the metal walls as they chased after Kale into the heart of the archive complex. The air was thick with tension, each breath a reminder that their lives hung in the balance. As they turned a corner, Evelyn spotted a gaping hole in the wall where an access panel had been ripped out. Beside it stood Mr. Jiang, the man she'd helped escape earlier, and behind him loomed two heavily armed Memory Vault agents. "You're finished," one of them sneered, leveling his weapon at Kale. "We've been tracking you ever since that botched extraction." Evelyn's heart froze as the agent's finger tightened on the trigger, but before he could pull it, Ren lunged forward, grabbing him by the wrist and forcing it upward. "No!" Evelyn cried out, her mind racing for a solution. She spotted an unsecured server nearby, a critical node in the archives, and made a split-second decision. The resulting surge of electricity threw the Memory Vault agents off balance, allowing Ren to disarm them. Kyle swiftly dispatched Mr. Jiang as well, ensuring their escape route remained open. As they retreated into the maze of corridors, Evelyn knew her actions had set them on a collision course with Memory Vault's most ruthless operatives. Their pursuit would be relentless until every last one of them was caught and silenced. The rebels were now fugitives in a city that knew no mercy. The odds seemed insurmountable, but Evelyn found solace in the fact that she'd chosen to stand against the oppressive regime that had once held her captive physically and mentally. In this moment, as they fled through the heart of Memory Vault's archives, Evelyn realized that the true battle for freedom would never end. It was an ongoing war, one she was now committed to waging alongside Kyle and Ren until the very fabric of Neo Vancouver's corporate-controlled society was torn apart and rebuilt anew. Together they would fight not only against the monolithic corporations, but also against their own demons, the memories, lies, and traumas that had once defined them. They would forge a new reality, a future where consciousness was sacred, not for sale to the highest bidder. And so, Evelyn's journey continued as a fugitive, a rebel, and ultimately as a beacon of hope in a city perpetually shrouded in shadows. The stakes were high, but her resolve remained unwavering. She would see this revolution through, no matter the cost, because she knew that true freedom was worth fighting for, the only thing worth living for. The safe house in Neil Vancouver's abandoned industrial zone was a labyrinth of dimly lit corridors, steel walls, and barred windows that filtered in the faint glow from distant neon signs. It had been their sanctuary for weeks now, a place to regroup, plan, and heal after each daring escapade into the heart of Memory Vault. Evelyn leaned back against the cold concrete wall, her breath steady but shallow as she scanned the room. Wren and Cale sat on opposite sides of a makeshift table, huddled over a holographic display projecting schematics of the city's infrastructure. Their focus was intense, but Evelyn knew they were both aware of her gaze. "Anything?" she asked, breaking the silence. Wren glanced up, his expression grim. "The usual layers upon layers of security and surveillance. We'll need to find a way in without being detected." Evelyn nodded, understanding the gravity of their task. They sought not only to free memories, but also to dismantle Memory Vault's stronghold on Neil Vancouver's collective consciousness, a feat that seemed as elusive as it was necessary. She watched Cale as he studied the diagrams, his fingers tracing the outlines of buildings and subway tunnels with a precision that bordered on reverence. His dedication to this cause, to freeing minds from corporate control, had initially been unsettling. But it was now a beacon of hope in a world where such concepts seemed laughable. Cale looked up, catching Evelyn's stare. "We should move soon," he said, his voice low and measured. "Memory Vault will start getting suspicious if we keep delaying." Evelyn acknowledged the truth behind his words. They had to act before their safe house was compromised, or worse, a fate that still haunted her from Mr. Zhang's apartment days ago. "We'll leave tonight," Wren agreed, standing up and stretching his muscular frame. "I've got a contact who can get us in through one of the ventilation shafts." Evelyn stood as well, feeling the weight of their mission settle upon her shoulders once more. The thought of venturing back into Memory Vault's belly was terrifying, but she knew it was necessary for herself and for all those suffering under the corporation's thumb. "We'll need to split up," Cale said, his eyes locked on hers. Evelyn felt a pang of unease. Something was off about him lately, a hesitation that hadn't been there before. "We'll handle the extraction," he finished, but the lack of conviction in his tone spoke volumes. Evelyn exchanged a concerned glance with Wren before refocusing on Cale. "You okay?" she asked softly. "Something's bothering you." Cale's gaze shifted away, and for an instant Evelyn saw a flicker of vulnerability, a glimpse into the man behind the enigmatic dealer. "It's nothing," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Just apprehensions about tonight, about everything we're doing." Evelyn reached out, her fingers brushing against his arm in silent understanding. "We'll get through it together," she promised. "And when this is over—" She broke off as Wren's voice cut in, urging them to finalize their plans. Cale nodded, pulling himself back into focus. "Let's do this then." The tension between Evelyn and Cale was palpable as they began to discuss the specifics of tonight's operation, the target memory, the extraction protocol, and the escape route. Despite her growing unease about Cale's state of mind, Evelyn steeled herself for what lay ahead. As they worked through their strategies, Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, something that threatened to unravel everything they had built so far. But she pushed those thoughts aside, opting instead to trust in the cause and in her comrades, a decision that would soon lead her down a treacherous path fraught with uncertainty and danger. Within hours, they were ready to move. Evelyn shouldered her backpack containing all the tools of their clandestine trade, as Wren led them through the winding corridors of the safe house toward the exit, a nondescript door hidden behind a tangle of old pipes and electrical conduits. As she followed Cale out into the dark alleyway beyond, Evelyn felt a surge of adrenaline course through her veins. They were going in deep into Memory Vault's heart, and nothing could stop them now. At least that was what she hoped as they vanished into the city's labyrinthine underbelly, their next destination unknown but inevitable. Streets of Neo-Vancouver were ablaze with neon lights and pulsing energy signatures, their beacon calling to her like a siren song of rebellion. Evelyn marched forward, Cale by her side, ran just ahead each step, carrying them closer to the brink of change and further from the life she once knew. The city stretched out before them, a maze of towering skyscrapers and dimly lit alleyways, all under the watchful eye of Memory Vault's omnipresent surveillance network. But tonight, Evelyn and her comrades were not mere shadows. They were the vanguard of a revolution that would shake this dystopian metropolis to its core. As they turned down a narrow street lined with warehouses and abandoned factories, Evelyn felt a chill run down her spine. The neon sign seemed to flicker in time with the erratic rhythm of her heart, a symphony of fear and anticipation. Suddenly, Cale stopped short, raising a hand for them to halt. "Something's off," he whispered urgently, his eyes scanning the dark recesses between buildings. Wren moved to join him, but Evelyn stayed put at an impasse in the alleyway. The city was alive around her, a living, breathing entity that seemed to be watching. With Cale's warning still echoing in her mind, Evelyn scanned the darkness ahead, senses on high alert. The air was heavy with anticipation, a palpable weight that seemed to press against her skin. She could feel Wren's gaze upon her, steadfast and unwavering. For a moment, they stood frozen in time, a tableau of defiance etched into the city's concrete heart. "We need to keep moving," she finally whispered, her voice barely audible over the distant hum of Neo-Vancouver's omnipresent machinery. "Memory Vault won't stop until we're caught." Cale nodded curtly and led them down a narrow side street, their footsteps echoing off the walls in an eerie symphony. Evelyn followed closely behind, her eyes darting between the shadows cast by flickering neon signs and the dark recesses of abandoned buildings. The city seemed to be closing in on them, a living, breathing entity that was as much a part of their struggle as they were. As they approached the next intersection, Evelyn caught a flash of movement out of the corner of her eye, barely perceptible yet unmistakable. Her heart skipped a beat and she spun around, hand instinctively flying to her concealed pistol. "What is it?" Cale asked, his own weapon drawn, a silent sentinel at his side. She pointed wordlessly toward the dark alleyway they'd just vacated. A low growl emanated from its depths, followed by the unmistakable scrape of metal on concrete. Something was coming, and it didn't sound friendly. "Wren," Evelyn hissed, "get ready." The younger man's eyes widened, and he reached for his own weapon, a sleek, high-tech device designed for close-quarters combat. Evelyn glanced around quickly, searching for cover, anything to shield them from the unknown threat closing in on their position. It was then that she spotted it, the entrance to an abandoned warehouse just a few feet away. With Cale already moving toward it, Evelyn sprinted forward, Wren hot on her heels. They dove inside just as a chorus of gunfire erupted from behind, rounds thudding into the corrugated steel walls of their newfound sanctuary. Panting heavily, Evelyn risked a glance over her shoulder. Through the warehouse's grimy windows, she could see Memory Vault agents streaming down the alleyway, their black uniforms stark against the city's neon-lit backdrop. "They're sealing off the area," Cale whispered urgently, his eyes scanning the dimly lit interior of their refuge. "We need to get out now." Evelyn nodded and turned toward a stack of crates in the corner, a makeshift barricade that would provide cover as they made their escape. But just as she reached for it, her phone buzzed ominously in her pocket, a signal from an unknown number. "Who is this?" Evelyn demanded, her voice low and threatening. A distorted voice answered, filtered and unrecognizable. "You know who we are," the caller said, "and you're about to find out exactly what we're capable of." The line went dead, and in its place was a chilling message. "Meet us at Pier 14 tonight at midnight. Don't be late." Evelyn's blood ran cold as she realized the true extent of their adversaries, the lengths they would go to reclaim the illicit memories being sold on the black market. And then, Just as suddenly as it had begun, everything went dark, a brutal reminder that in Neo-Vancouver, one wrong move could mean death or worse. As Evelyn waited for her phone screen to flicker back to life, she couldn't shake the feeling that their escape was only temporary, the city's merciless pursuit merely biding its time until the next opportunity arose. With a deep breath, she pushed those thoughts aside and turned toward Ren and Kale, her comrades in this desperate fight for freedom. Together, they would find a way out of this nightmare, a path forward into an uncertain but promising future where consciousness was truly sovereign. The question was, how long would it take before Memory Vault caught up, and what price would Evelyn have to pay for her newfound purpose as the vanguard of this revolution?